afternoon. Welcome to Live It Out Thursday night. Come in. I want you guys to click like, click share, subscribe to our YouTube page. Tell your friends that it's about to go down again on a Thursday night with Live It Out Inc. I have something amazing for you guys tonight. So go grab the men folk. Go get the brothers, the uncles, the nephews, the husband, the boo things, the babe. Go get them and tell them to come join in this conversation with us. It will be some phenomenal information given out today. I have two amazing gentlemen whom I just met, and they are ready to roll with us tonight to get us on our way to mental health and wellness. As you know, guys, we've been on this mental health journey, and we paused for the month of March to focus on our men. So March is all about the men, all about understanding how to heal the Black man, how the men deal with depression, anxiety, stress, everything. So we want you to please, if you have a male in your house, allow them to be a part of this feed, this podcast. Let them ask their questions. Type your questions in the feed. We have some professional men on here tonight. We've heard what the brothers had to say. Now we got to get a response from our professional brothers. And I had two brothers with me, one all the way from Philly, Uncle Cal, and I have Elijah with us tonight. And as we bring them in, I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So buckle up, ladies. Let's take this ride for mental health. Make sure you do your mental health check-in, everybody. Make sure you do your mental health check-in first, okay? So, all right, you know, I like to jump right in. So, Uncle Kev, before we get started, I want you to just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. Okay. And then, Elijah, you can tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I'm just bubbling.
Hey, I love the energy. So, what's up, everybody? Good evening. My name is Kevin Gold, but I'm branded by the name of Uncle Kev. Everyone calls me Uncle Kev, so let's rock with Uncle Kev. I am currently residing in Philadelphia, where I've been for the last 14 years. Born and raised in North Carolina, though. I'm a country boy to the death of me, right? I'm an educator by trade, but I am a youth advocate in all things mental health by passion. I am the curator and founder of All the King's Men Incorporated and King's University Incorporated, which are two community outreach, mentorship, and scholarship platforms for young Black and brown boys ages 10 to 18. I am a certified life coach. I am invested in all things mental health and wellness. So it's a pleasure to be in a safe space tonight. So Thanks for having me.
Okay. Go ahead, Elijah.
Absolutely. Hey now, everybody. Pleasure to connect. Pleasure to introduce myself. I'm Elijah Thompson, coming to you live from New York City, New York. I am a licensed clinical social worker by trade. So I specialize in psychotherapy for adolescents, children, youth, and adults. I work with couples. I work with individuals on a weekly basis out of a group practice based in the Lower East Side, Soho, Manhattan. We're called Resilience Lab. And in my day job, I work as a medical social worker, at a community hospital in the city, in the Bronx, exactly, where I work with oftentimes low income, families suffering from, tragic medical ailments, and, helping them come together, to find their resilience and establish a safe plan to return them home and back in their communities, the best, that they can be. I've experienced working in policy at the state and city level, working formally with, Gail Brewer, the Manhattan Borough President, as well as Senator Gustavo Rivera, based out of the Bronx as well, on the New York State Health Committee, where I worked, at the onset of the pandemic, when it hit New York City, allocating funds, resources, and, trying to make interventions on multiple levels, to support our communities in need, both in the hospital setting, in the nonprofit outpatient setting, really just identifying the problems that we had and intervening to make a difference. But as a Black man, first and foremost, my passion is in my community and the problems and the struggles that we often face disproportionately, whether it's financially oriented, whether it's, trauma exposure based, whether it is, a multitude of challenges that, us Black and brown folk, experience at such high and disproportionate rates. That's what really drove me, to this space and to become involved and to dedicate my life to make a difference. It's a pleasure to connect with you all tonight. I'm looking forward to having such a great discussion in this safe space.
Awesome. I mean, you guys are knee deep in this. I mean, that's so awesome. Y'all knee deep in it. I love it. Because it is much needed. It is so much needed. So to just pop it off, I just wanted, my first question was, as an African American man, what made you go into the field that you chose to go into?
Yeah, wow. That's a good question. That's a great question. I think as a black man, it's so personal to us. Oftentimes we come from single parent households, with low income. We, experience oftentimes the most brunt and difficult aspects of society. Like I spoke to earlier, we're exposed to trauma, whether it's community violence in the home, at such high rates that, we experience mental health symptoms at an earlier standpoint, and we also experience more exaggerated, poor health outcomes like, suicide, substance abuse, prison, and what have you, right? So, growing up in my family, seeing the men who've been addicted to drugs, alcohol, and other substances, observing, their own disconnection from their own health, not understanding how to get resources, how to get support, what access looks like, what mental health symptoms look like. And recognizing that, I had a privilege and an opportunity to gain education and to be aware and familiar with these concerns, so that I'm uniquely positioned to step up, get involved, and make a difference, especially with our younger folk, right? Trying to turn the tide and inspire people to be more informed about their well-being. So that's really just kind of the nutshell for me. And, growing up, obviously, on a personal level, I experienced several challenges, related to mental health, with anxiety, ADHD early on, having trouble, in schools, whatnot, being a larger, boy, as many black men are, not fitting in so directly, with some of the other folk I went to school with, right? We're branded oftentimes as troublesome, as that we don't take attention, pay attention. We don't listen to orders. We don't follow direction, right? And so we see that school to prison pipeline so early on. And I, if I wasn't saved in these different ways, that I would have been right there along so many of my brothers. So it's deeply personal to me, and it's an opportunity that I try to take advantage of, make a difference.
Okay, Uncle Kev, what made you get into this field?
Similar story, man. I think for me though, there's always been a lack of black male presence. And with that being the narrative, there were so many people creating the narrative around black boys and black men, right, and what we are and who we are defined by what their thoughts and perceptions were, right? Yeah. And I was tired of people creating my story for me. I was tired of people telling me what they felt my truth was, right? So I had to become the outlet for other boys and young men like myself to not have to succumb to what the narratives created around us was, but to find our voices and to utilize those to tell the truth about our experiences and our stories and our narratives and our traumas. Hey, we do exist. Hey, we have been through some stuff. Hey, I'm not afraid to talk about it. Hey, I do trust you. And it's okay to trust, and it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to say these things out loud and not hide behind it. Because when I do, I understand me more, and now I can help you understand you, right? So I do this work not for me at all. I've like Elijah shared, like I've experienced my own level of traumas and mishaps as a younger black boy in a predominantly white town in a country of North Carolina, right? Yes. So that within itself afforded me the opportunity to, by nature of skin color, be the initial advocate for other black boys who didn't find that space, right? Or find that those people around them to shape them. And more often than not, black boys are surrounded by black women. So that's all we know, right? But when that's no longer a norm for us, where do we go? So it just made sense for me to alleviate any possible excuses black boys could use to not heal by becoming that person.
Okay. So for both of you, I hear both of you saying that it's very personal for you.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
Okay, so that's the commitment and the dedication that you have to this field, this mental health wellness for our black, not just our black men, but our black boys, brown and black boys that's coming up, especially in today's society. Now, let me ask you this: what's the biggest misconception that you think is out there about men and mental health when it comes to mental health? What's the big misconception that just the average people have on it when it comes to you guys in mental health?
Man, that's a great question. That's a great topic. And for me, even in researching, leading up to this, it's the idea that we can tough it out, right? It's the idea that we are stronger than our problems. It's the idea that we can just, look beyond it, tap into some of that aggressive tendencies and overcome, simply with our mindset alone. But hyper masculinity, as a concept, as an idea, as a reality for so many of us, really fails to take into account the human aspect of what it means to be a male. That we experience emotion, feelings, have challenging thoughts, in relation to our environment and what we're exposed to, just as equally as that of our female counterparts. And so, we need to really, kind of dispel this idea that we are just strong enough that strength alone, from a physical nature can surpass the significance of some of the mental health and the emotional needs that we all carry, and instead educate and inform people about what those symptoms look like, what those experiences look like, and how to address that, with other aspects of strength, like your own versatility, mental fortitude, seeking out support, and opening up your heart as opposed to closing it down and becoming aggressive.
Okay, Uncle Cal, you want to add to it?
Yeah, I think the most common is that black boys don't go through stuff. And when we do, we could just get through it. We don't need to talk. There's no sense in talking. You go through it, you experience it, and you move on. End of the story. Period. Right? No, bro, that ain't how life works. That's not how it works. I'm sorry. Can I be myself, please? I've been professional all day. Can I be myself? That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Because I can bank on the fact that as we are experiencing things, black boys hide within themselves the notion already that I feel a tear coming, but let me not shed this tear because somebody's going to think less of me because I cry, right? I feel hurt by something somebody said, but let me be angry instead of showing that I'm hurt. Let me be mad, because if I show that I'm hurt, that's a sign of weakness, and society says I can't be weak. Not society, black society says I can't be weak, right? And as oppressed as we are by our white counterparts, more often than not, they are more receptive to the truth of our feeling than our own people are, right? Wow. So the common misconceptions is that we don't go through stuff. Bro, we do.
Yeah.
And it hurts. And we cry. And we feel. And we have the right to, because we are human beings before we are black or brown or white or Asian or whatever. We are human. And as humans, we experience. And in experiences, we feel. Right?
Right.
Let us feel. Let us feel.
Let you feel. Right. I love it. I love it. Okay. And that's the whole stigma of boys don't cry. You're not supposed to tell how you feel and stuff like that. So that suffering silence thing that most men have. But are black men more likely to have mental health problems because they suffer in silence, because they hide the tears and they hide the pain and they hide the hurt? Are they more likely to have mental health problems?
I have mentored to date over 200 something dudes in Philly, black dudes. I'm not restricted to just black dudes. I have an Asian son, a white son, so I do my work across the board, but majority of my boys are black boys. And to answer your question, absolutely. If they don't have someone, or let me equate myself to the likes of my boys. If we don't have someone to love us enough or care for us enough to pull out of us what we don't say, the world will create this perception that we actually want to be silent, right? And they won't give us help because we're expected to be strong enough to handle stuff anyway, right? Date back to slavery times. The black men carried the weight.
Yeah.
They took the burden, right? Even for ish that wasn't ours to carry, we took the brunt of everything, right? So the perception around who we are physically is then translated into what we need to be mentally and emotionally. So yeah, we are less likely to own mental supports that are needed and own the fact that we have traumas and stuff that we go through, and less likely to seek the support and suffer in silence because we often need, and I'm going to be very confident in saying we need people to care about us enough to pull it out of us when we don't say it out loud.
Oh, exactly. I agree. So
And
what do you think, Elijah? Are black men more likely to have mental health issues because they suffer in silence?
you know, the unfortunate reality is that that's absolutely so. I think it's really twofold. One, on the personal level, right, on that micro level, you know, between ourselves and our families. You know, the emotional education really isn't available often, right, due to stress and pressures that are financially related, due to, you know, lack of support, lack of you know, assistance, right? You know, the parents are worried about going to work, worried about bringing food, you know, and bringing the money in, right? And beyond that, what kind of time and energy do they have necessarily to be aware and observant and tuned in to the needs and the challenges that some of their kids may have, and even recognize some of the early symptoms and warning signs that they may show, right? And you know, depending on the community, if you look at it on a meso level, access to resources, access to treatment, access to support is often fleeting and unavailable. You know, it's not cheap, especially in New York State, to you know, acquire a therapist, to get involved in programs, and to get our assistance, right? You know, directly for our needs, for our mental health symptoms. Oftentimes, you know, we're part of a sports team. Oftentimes, you know, we're running with a crew of folk, you know, and that can, you know, that peer support, that community, that can make a big difference, whether it's in the church, whether it's in, you know, the ball teams, whether it's in, you know, your family. That goes a long way, but that unfortunately is not enough to bridge the gap between, you know, well-being and health. And so oftentimes, just because we don't have that access to our resources, to the resources that make a difference, we really suffer. And if you look at it on a macro level, you know, at the state level, the city level, we're not getting, you know, funding equitably in our communities. You know, we're not really having the same kind of town, you know, and local clubs that have the resources to engage, you know, the kids early. You know, so when we're left to our own devices, we're isolated, alone, and experiencing pressure, pain, frustration, whether it's from divorce, whether it's from, you know, violence, whether it's from, you know, just general trauma. You know, it's so much more likely that we turn to alcohol, to drugs, and to other substances, you know, as a mechanism of treatment, you know, that we learn intergenerationally, watching our uncles, watching our aunties, watching our family and others in the community treat themselves in that way. So there's so many different barriers when it comes to awareness, acknowledgement, and then intervention for mental health in our communities. And it's a damn shame, because this has been the problem, you know, for so many different generations, ever since my grandparents were in the projects, you know what I mean, during segregation, all the way up until now, as I look at my young, you know, family and the challenges that they experience. So yeah, it's real unfortunate.
Yes, and I was going to talk about those barriers that you were talking about that stop men from seeking help. It's so many barriers out there that stop black men from seeking help. So, Uncle Kev, you want to talk about some of those barriers? Because
and I'm never gonna. It's like the in the church. If you know church language, you never put the elder after the bishop. Bishop goes last, right? So the bishop just spoke. I just want to add to something that he mentioned. Well, really, like, dig into something that he mentioned when he said parents, right? And oftentimes in our community, and by our I mean black folk, our parents are in need of healing and mental support. So they can't
Amen.
support their children because they need it. So they're operating with all the toxicity that they've allowed themselves to obtain over the years through their traumatic experiences. And then not only are they left up, or are we left up to our own devices, but all we know is to push it aside and keep it moving.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't let them see you sweat. Don't let them see you cry. Don't let them see you hurt. Right? So, and I want to use a personal example. My grandmother passed away 2 days before Thanksgiving in 2019. She was the only connecting piece to our well-being, right?
Hmm.
And when I say our, I mean my mother as her only child, and then I mean my siblings and myself as my mother's children, right? So my whole lifetime there was only me, my 3 sisters, my mom, and my grandma, right? It wasn't until we lost my grandmother that I was able to view my mother differently. My mom didn't raise me, my grandmother did, right? I was privy to the fact that my mom was also 15 when she had me. She had 3 kids by the time she graduated high school. So there are things that I grew up, perceptions about her that I grew up with, right? But it wasn't until I lost my grandmother that I understood my mom did the best she could with what she had, right? And at 15, you can only do but so much to raise because you still need to be raised, right? Yeah. And that's the same narrative for mental illnesses, right? And mental health. Unless we do the work within ourselves, we can't help heal, right? So we need to be healed in order to support healing. And that's my go on that. I said too much after the bishop, but
no.
that's my thought.
Beautiful.
That's the whole thing, is to heal. We got to heal the whole family so we can break those generational curses that's on us, especially when it comes to mental health.
That's
and
right.
Being toxic and sweeping stuff under the rug and suffering in silence. Mm-hmm. We got to heal the whole family. And I was saying in my post today, I was telling people, we're trying to heal the whole family, the whole community, starting with the man who's supposed to be the head of the house. You know, who's supposed to be the leaders that we look for. So we need to get our men healed so they can take back their power and stand in a position that they were birthed here to do. You know, you were birthed to be kings and leaders and providers and all of that stuff. And that stuff has been deteriorating over years from slavery on down. And it's like it's getting worse and worse. And we got to get back our foundation. We got to get back to where we come from and knowing who we are and whose we are. Absolutely. And what we are supposed to be doing here.
That's right.
And this mental health thing is just like, it's been like, growing up, I really didn't, you know, and the word has been banned from the dictionary. They was calling people, you know, they retarded, or, you know, they slow, or they special, you know, they were saying things like that, but nobody really dealt with why is that particular child. Because I work with children too. I work with younger children, and I work with special need, challenging behavior children. Let's put it like that. And I always say, now, this is a challenging child that's gonna grow up and be a challenging adult.
That's right.
He or she don't get what they need
to cope
in society. And a lot of men, a lot of our young people, a lot of our young boys, they don't know how to cope. They don't know how to deal with this stuff when they out there in the streets. And it's so much toxicity in the home. Nobody is being here. It's just so much going on. It's so much. Grandmas are not, you know, big mamas and all them. When they go, it's over. Nobody's to carry the torch. Nobody's left to carry the torch. Nobody's left to keep the family building and keep the family going. But I don't want to get on. I want y'all.
Right. I mean, no, that's such a good point. Because when we lose connection to those people, who can we be vulnerable to? Who is going to take the time to really appreciate and connect to us and take into account our interests and our needs? Who's going to look a little bit closer to understand when something is off or something is different? Nobody did it like grandma, right? Nobody,
because grandma can always just tune in like, something ain't right about you. What's going on with you? You don't look right. You know, you'd be like, what? No, you just don't look right to me. What's going on? You know, and we don't have that.
Right,
but That's another question I wanted to ask you guys. how big of a part do you think our culture play in this mental health thing? Like our culture today, like even down to our music, the way our way of life, the lifestyle, the things that
Mm,
society tell us we supposed to deal with. So what part does
mm,
our culture play? Trying to fit in, trying to belong, trying to get money, trying to free bands and this and that and
yeah.
everything, social media and all of this. So where part coming from a professional standpoint, do you think that culture plays on our mental health and men, especially men?
No, I think that's a really good point. I mean, and a lot of what you just said is really based on chauvinism, right? It's that external, presentation. What are we doing outwardly, and how are we perceived because of that display, right? So it really just speaks to different, indicators of success, of well-being, of achievement. As you mentioned, clothing, what car you drive, what kind of products you have, what kind of outward success that people can view, and it really just even furthers the disconnect between what's happening within our minds, what's happening within our emotions, how we are experiencing that, how we're responding to that, and if the only indicators that we have are from our environment, from those people around us, their perception of us, then how could we ever truly, tackle those deeper, more difficult problems within, when we're looking in the wrong areas, in the wrong, sources for change and for improvement. So I think that culture, unfortunately, when we talk about, being upset, being angry, being frustrated, when it comes to our music, again, we talk a bit about violence, right? There's a lot of violence involved in there. There's a lot of substance abuse involved in there. There's a lot of avoidance, a lot of neglect, because sometimes it's cooler to be nonchalant about our problems, right? To minimize them, to neglect them, as significant as they may be, when it involves families, when it involves our partners. So yeah, I think it's an unfortunate imbalance there, because like you said, when it comes down to it, it's all about getting the money, looking fresh, and stunting in front of everybody else. But what are we doing in the home? What are we doing behind closed doors? And how are we getting real with ourselves before we can ever achieve the level of success we have available to us?
Yes. Y'all excuse my dog. He doing his job. Uncle Kev, you want to speak on the culture?
Again, you put me up after the bishop. No, I just say I think it's heavily influenced. I will say black boys are forced to look at a certain source for inspiration, and nowhere in their source of inspiration is there mention of mental health and mental wellness. It's always reactionary to what's around. So, for instance, violence is very heavy in Philly right now, right? As violence continues to peak, so does the entertainment around cities like mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what about the 12-year-old and 15-year-old black boys that are innocently like playing in the park and getting slain, or walking down the street and getting slain? Last night, a kid was released from a detention center and killed right in front of the prison.
Wow.
Yeah, 20 years old, right? So where's the conversation around the preventative measures for black boys in the culture, right?
Exactly.
It's not happening. It's not happening. Or if it is, it's very rare. And usually in those rare forms, we're limited in funds, so we can only do but so much, right? Yeah, so I think black culture is heavily responsible for the lack of proper healing and mental awareness and mental wellness for our black boys.
I agree. We got to. I mean, like, how do we change it? How do I know it's 1,000 mentor groups out there that's willing to mentor, but then are they getting to the root of the problem? Parents are bringing to, they drop them off at the mentoring little center. Take them on down. Yeah, we're gonna do Big Brothers, and we're gonna mentor your boys, and we're gonna show them this, and we're gonna show you that. But then he leaves that place go back into that toxic environment, and everything he learned there, he done forgot, or it won't manifest because he has nothing to work with at home. So it's just a revolving door that's going around and around, and nothing is like it's sticking. It's not being stuck. It's not in them. They've been exposed to it, but it's not in them. Now, we had a question. Somebody said, how can we go about getting funding for our individuals community? Because I know you guys are Elijah from New York and Uncle Kev is in Philly. So like in your community, how do you go about getting funding just for mental health? Like,
it's hard. It's hard. We ain't white, so we not at the table to talk about funding more often than not, right? And then we're talking about supporting mental health for the forgotten population, the population of people who people don't really care for, right? Black boys, right? Black men. What money, right?
Yeah.
We have to self-fund these things sometimes, right? How do we get funding for our communities? Create our own tables and invite people to sit around them who care about us, who think about us, who don't mind incorporating $1 or $2 in their $1 billion funding plans.
Exactly.
And that's where that goes. Take money out of unnecessary stuff and put it where it needs to go, right? Philly just spent billions of dollars putting light poles on Broad Street. That's unnecessary. But our schools are failing. We have no resources in our schools. They have torn down libraries and stopped funding libraries to fund prisons and juvenile detention centers. But you just spent $1 billion on light poles.
On light poles. Wow.
Big Brother, Big Sister, one of the biggest mentoring organizations in the country. Mediocre programming. Top dollar. Why, bro? Yeah. What about these grassroots organizations that cater to the specific need of these families in specific communities and demographics who could benefit from those billions of dollars you give in Broad Street for light poles or Big Brother, Big Sister for mediocre programming? Like, people who look like us, got to be bold enough to say that stuff out loud. I wish somebody would sit me to the table with somebody from Big Brother, Big Sister.
I'm waiting on my.
I can't wait. Don't ever. Listen. I'm a firm believer in. Right. Don't ask me nothing if you don't want to know the truth. If I can't be honest, ask somebody else.
Speak.
I'm waiting for the moment for somebody to ask me, what do you need? And why do you feel like it's this way? They're gonna have to kick me out the room by the time I'm over. But that's what it is. I hope I answered your question, young lady who asked the question. But that's how I feel about it. Elijah, you may feel different. I'm just blessed that I was able to go before the bishop this time.
Hey, Elijah did this. He was with you. He was with you.
100%. Yeah, nothing but facts right there. That's all truth, man. I mean, I think one of the first steps is admitting and recognizing we have a problem, right? If we continue to suppress and to avoid and to neglect on the most fundamental, the most personal levels within ourselves, within our families, how can we ever begin to intervene and make a difference with the problem? So it's not, but that's on a personal level. I would say it starts with unification. It starts with collective identity, becoming more invested, right, in the greater good of the collective, not just the individual. And, making a connection with the last point you said, about popular culture and the way that it's represented. So much of it's about the individual. So much of it's about the way I flex, the way I look, the money that I get, not about how we can all progress through shared need, shared identity, and shared, progress. And so I think it really comes to a point of unification, galvanizing around a shared concern. And going through the proper channels, holding our elected officials, holding, our representatives to task, lobbying, around the concerns and the issue areas that we have, working with stakeholders in these nonprofits and these, government facing, organizations that are put in place to assign the resources to, create the programs that can make a difference. But we have to identify, we have to, get on our rooftops and shout and demand We have to go right into the offices of every single person who has any responsibility on our communities. And we have to get them involved directly. So it all happens with unification, you know, and a level of intent, a level of aggression, a level of commitment to get it done, just in the way that they did in the 60s throughout the 90s, right? Whether it's you know, equal rights, whether it's, you know, focusing on prison reform, whether it's focusing on you know, housing and equity, whether it's focusing on voting rights, right? That's the only way we have ever done it, by refusing to avoid it, refusing to ignore it, but coming together and demanding progress and change.
Being heard and being seen, to know that we are here and we deserve our mental health to be taken care of. I totally agree. 100%. Now I'm gonna kind of switch up. We're gonna go back to the black man. Now, as a girlfriend or a wife or a mate, or, you know, a family member or a friend, what are the warning signs that a man would give off that he's not okay? Like, if I'm dating this dude, and it don't have to be extreme, like, you know, the extreme stuff, we're probably like, okay, he cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, let me get out of here. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, what are the signs for the, you know, the brother that, you know, we vibing, we good. And then he starts giving me these, you know, what are the signs that we look for to know that, hey, something may be wrong here? Like, let's have a conversation. Or what am I looking for?
He's silent. He's not too quick to give you what you're asking for, right? In terms of a conversation. Men, when, and I will say, most men, especially men who care and are very cautious about how they represent themselves to people they love and care about, are very reserved when it comes to their truth, because we don't want to hurt you, right? Mm-hmm. We don't want you to feel attacked by our truth, but we do want to be able to speak our truth. A lot of what people on the other end of that need to understand is that we need the space to do that, right? So when you're asking, ask to really hear and understand, right? Versus to be conversational. He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want a rebuttal. He just wants you to hear, right? So that's a sign. Another sign is he could become very reserved, not really wanting to do things that he usually does, right? Or the reverse of that, triggered to the point where he becomes very angry. You can't really identify the personality anymore, right? He's becoming someone you don't recognize. And as safe as you can, I know you didn't ask for solutions, but call that out safely. Hey, if it's your significant other, hey, babe, I noticed that a lot of things about you are seemingly different. I'm not recognizing a lot of how you respond to things, and I feel like something may be wrong, and you don't want to talk. Like, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But here am I creating the space for you to, like, authentically express yourself. If it's your son, if it's your brother, if it's your father, whoever, just create the safe space, and do so by letting him know you're there to listen and not to respond. Gotcha. Because all he wants to do is get it out. All he wants to do is get it out. And he don't want to be held accountable for what it does to you as a response to it, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, and I say this all the time, I'm only responsible for my truth and speaking my truth. I am not responsible for how you receive that, right? Mm-hmm. That's work that you have to do within yourself to not feel attacked when somebody says their truth to you, right? So I will say, yeah, those are the most, I want to say, like, intimate, most essential ways to acknowledge and understand what the signs may be, right?
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's some really good points. I mean, let's kind of characterize what the issue is, right? There's about 156 million men in the U.S. and we're all connected by 5 major mental health problems. So depression, 1. There's 6 million men affected by depression per year. And it's underdiagnosed. We're far more likely to report fatigue, irritability, as Brother Kev said, loss of interest in work or hobbies, and less than the standard ways of reporting depression, with sadness or feelings of worthlessness, focusing on feelings. We just act, we behave, and it's in those implicit nature of our behavior that the evidence can be found. Anxiety, over almost 4 million men have panic disorder, agoraphobia, and other phobias, right? Psychosis, schizophrenia. 3.5 million American men are diagnosed with schizophrenia. 95% by the age of 30 are men. Eating disorders, even if you look at it, 10% of those annually with anorexia, bulimia, are males, right? And it's a damn shame. So I think you are more likely to have something in some form or fashion than to not have, right? If we look at it, in another way as well. Let's see. Men in trauma, right? 6 out of every 10 men experience at least one trauma in their lives. And men are more likely to experience trauma related to accidents, physical assault, combat, disaster, or witness death or injury, which is a more substantial amount of trauma. So our brothers out here are carrying baggage that's so deep, and it could be so suppressed, it could be so pushed down and compartmentalized that it becomes a part of our personality. It becomes a part, of our nature, secondhand, right? As we adjust and we grow to live in that way. So I think it's in the more implicit acts of our behavior. It's in our mood. It's in our choices. Are we drinking more than we typically do? Are we out in a way unaccounted for more than we normally should be? Are we not answering calls in the same way? Are we not interacting with our children in the same way? How are we treating you? Right? Are we showing up with love, with compassion, with interest? Or are we removed? Are we, neglectful? And are we, disinterested? Right? So oftentimes, because of the way that we're socialized, we don't have the words to express what we're going through. We don't have the, ability, especially at the height of the emotion, to depict and to share and to name what our pain is. So for women, for those in our family, it's about knowing who you're with. It's about understanding what their nature is, and about picking up on those intricate differences and showing up and meeting them where they are, and just being there more than half the time. It's just being there.
Just
Absolutely.
being. Wow, that was a mouthful. Ladies, I hope you were listening and taking notes on how to recognize if he's not okay by creating that safe space and know who you're dealing with. Watch the mood. Watch how he's moving. He moving a little different. He ain't checking. He ain't loving on you like he normally does. Make sure it ain't no other woman either. But if
can I add something? She said, "Make sure it ain't no other."
Hey, make sure it ain't no other woman. But
so, but attached to that though, is the idea of this. It could be you.
It could be.
You could be the reason why something wrong with him, and he doesn't want to hurt you by saying it. So ask him, hey, babe, is it me? What I do or what didn't I do? Right? You need an extra hour tonight, or do whatever it is. Like,
that's so true.
Like it could be you. And it's not that he's crazy because of you, or he's off or mentally unstable because of you. I remember telling my daughter's mom, when she was 6 months pregnant with our daughter, I'm in this. I want this, but you are not caring for my feelings. And if you're not careful, I'm going to walk away from this relationship, because above all else, I need to feel like somebody cares about me if I'm contributing to the well-being of somebody else's care, right?
Right.
So I felt like that conversation was important for me, because it's not that she was mistreating me or anything, but how was your day is not the equivalent to a wellness check. It's the start of one.
Yeah.
But that can't be all we talk about. How my day was. I come home from work. The last thing I want to talk about is my work day. I mean, I get the question, So when I'm responding and I'm saying good, let good be okay. Don't start an argument because why are you only saying good? Your day was only good. I said good. Let good be good. Period. I don't want to talk about it. All right, and be okay with.
That's all you got to say.
Yeah, right. I bet if it was one of your little friends and they asked how your day,
you have a whole lot to say.
And now we got a problem because why you had to do all that? You feel what I'm saying? Why you had to do all that?
I mean,
all you had to do was accept the good.
I mean, yeah. That's a fact, right. I mean, the idea of meeting them where they are, but at the same point, it's like, how hard is it to break out of, you know, our normal conditions, the things that we are accustomed to, that we're comfortable with, right? So if there's a certain dynamic of the way that we communicate, the way we check in, the way we relate to one another, right? And we get so accustomed to that same standard, right? That same consistent path, it's so hard to find an alternative way to communicate, to connect, and to express ourselves, right? So, you know, we will look outside of that relationship. We will look to other means, right? Because we just have this code in front of us that's so formulaic, it's so consistent that there's any anxiety when we try to approach and try to make a difference, right? And you know, we talk about domestic violence, intimate partner violence. You know, the threat of loss, the threat of a disconnection, the threat of losing control is so significant for men, right? That it can have, especially men who are unstable, right? Men who have unchecked trauma, pain, and underlying mental health issues that are not diagnosed, right? For us to experience that loss of power, control, or influence, it's a direct connection to violence, you know, to poor decision making, and to cheating and these other problems. So, man, there's just so many different things in the mix when it comes to being able to connect and understand and make a difference for us brothers. It's not on the women. It's really on us. It's really on us to show up for ourselves and to make sure that the energy and that we're putting out there is something safe for everybody.
Right? Yes. Woo. Ooh, with all that stuff y'all got going on as me, that's a lot. But we was talking about this a little bit, Uncle Kev. It's always a myth that the black woman tears the black man down. You know, we was talking about that a little bit earlier before we came on. So tell me, how do you feel about that myth, and how do we change that perception that the black woman always tearing the black man down? She always doing this and doing that. So how do we change that misconception or that perception that people have that black women tear the black man down? And do you agree? Do you even agree with that statement?
Wow.
I don't believe. Go ahead. No, you go, Elijah.
Are you sure? No, please. I'd love to hear you. But I mean,
no, go ahead.
I mean,
okay, yeah, because I think we're kindred spirits with this one. Hey, listen, Elijah, we got to answer carefully, right?
Yes, big love.
I believe our audience is full of women, so we got to answer carefully. No, but I will say this. In full transparency, in all honesty, right? I wouldn't say they tear us down.
Okay.
I would say in some cases, and I use the term some very loosely because I have been privileged enough to be surrounded by black women who speak black male excellence so freely that I can't help but see the greatness in myself, right? And that's also a divide between how black women and black men are willing to speak up for each other, right? Men don't big men up like that. That's another problem I have. But I feel black women sometimes, and some black women sometimes, take the opportunity to bash and use their personal experience with poorly equipped black men, because I won't say bad black men. Every man has a flaw that's attached to a trauma he hasn't dealt with, right? He's not bad by choice, not all the time, right? I will say this. They use their own experiences with poorly equipped black men to now shape the narrative for what all black men must do, be, say, think, feel, right? And that's what I don't like. I don't like that we are all equipped or equated to the likes of that experience, right? So no, I don't feel like black women in totality bashes. I mean, tears us down, because I then can, on the other token, say black men don't do enough to support black women. And I feel very firmly about that. Like I'm actually going to host a conversation about
100%.
men staying out of women's business soon. So
Right.
I really don't feel like we
Whoa.
do enough to show up for our black women. We
Don't
require so much of them, but we offer so little. And that's not to say we don't have a lot to bring to the table, but when we get to the black woman's table, we expect her to have it prepped, bring the food to the table, take the food off the table, clear the dishes, wash the dishes, set the table for the next meal. And all we get to do is sit down and get up, right?
Yes.
So when we do bring the meal to the table, we don't spend half as much time in preparing it that she does. And we need to honor that. That's the truth of the matter. We don't do enough. So I can't say black women tear the black men down, and because I don't feel that they do. Like I said, they use their experiences. However, I can't mention that without also saying brothers got to step their game up too.
Game up too. Yes.
They got to step their game up too. We are quick to call out the flaw in the black women and quick to jump ship because of black women. Like, I can go on. That's how I feel. Go ahead, Elijah.
Hey, man,
we got go ahead.
Speaking a whole lot of truth right there, man. I mean, where do you even jump in after that? What I would say is that we take for granted the resources that are most readily available and accessible. And for generations, that has been the black woman in one shape or form, raising our youth, caring for us emotionally, providing, their time, energy, and intention, on building us up, growing us, and supporting us. That something that's always been there, something that's always been so strong. We over time cannot appreciate it to the value that it has in our lives. And I think that, so in my experience, in my understanding, through researching and understanding the culture, I feel like the black woman has been, a direct, factor in our success, in building us up and supporting us, in creating a platform that we can grow and build from. And without the black woman, there is no success, amongst the black male population, in my opinion. However, that being said, we must communicate, we must empathize, and we must understand, and we must look beyond our perspective to recognize, what it takes to be that partner, what it takes to be that support system, right? And what kind of wax and waning, experiences that support system may go through when they're down, when they're going through challenges, and the kind of love and healing that they need, right? So we can't put all of our weight on the shoulders of others. We got to show up for ourselves, and we got to be a part of the solution. Women, black women in particular, have been our solution, the start and the finish in our healing process for so long. So it's not fair for us to do that, to say that, to be a part of that nonsense, right? Because how would your grandma respond to that? How would auntie respond to that? How would these people who know what they've done for you, time and time again, mama, respond to that? That's just not right. So I think that, we are equal in our part, not just for black men's success, but the black female success as well. And we have to think, more about the ways that we can show up and that we can support her, so that she can be a stronger platform for our family. Because that's what it comes down to, the matriarch in these communities, black and brown, so often.
You need to put that on a shirt. You need to put that phrase on a shirt. Stop playing with these people in this thing, Elijah.
Yes, y'all killed that. Y'all was what you said to that question.
Hey, Kev, you set it up, brother.
You have uplifted black women to a whole nother level tonight.
Listen.
Trust and believe me. I feel proud to be a black woman. Another thing is the pressure from women for a man to be that Superman, to be the man. How does that affect a man that can't be? Well, I'm not gonna say can't, but who's not capable? Well, people have different expectations from men. Like if it's your husband or your son or whatever, uncle, whatever, you have your expectations. But just let's say hypothetically, say, I need you to be this guy, this Superman. I need you to be all that I need you to be. So is that pressure that we're putting on men, does it affect their mental health or does it affect their emotional well-being when they feel like they can't live up to what it is that the woman is asking for? And if so, is it that he runs, he leaves? Look, I ain't trying to do all of that, so I'm out of here. So how does that go?
Some men try. Some men will try before they jump ship. I'm guilty. I was one of those men. Like I'll give as much as I can, but I'm also one of those type of men who can be petty sometimes and be very honest sometimes, right? And what I'm going to say, you got all these requirements, but can I give you my list?
Exactly.
Can I tell you what I need from you? A lot of women won't accept that though, and that's how you decipher between black women and black girls, right?
Okay.
A woman is going to let you tell her what you need from her too, right? Too often I'm hearing people mention what that he ain't got. If he ain't got, then I don't want. Then what if we feel the same way? Right? Yeah. Right? It's my obligation to you as someone who has entrusted himself in a relationship with you to support you the way that I'm supposed to, but don't get the word provider twisted. I'm not supposed to be your end all be all, boo boo. I'm not willing to be your end all be all, boo boo, unless medically you can't work or you're carrying my child and you need to stay home, do that, right? But when you can work, that's where you're going. Why? Because I believe that there needs to be the abundance of stability, especially the way society works now, right? Yeah. Especially the way the economy is now. Like we can't afford for one party to be selfish and assume that the man should have all these things, right? Because what he's then going to do is try to materialistically please you, and he'll deplete within value of self because he's working so hard to please you monetarily or emotionally please you, that he then tears away from his emotional well-being and his mental stability. So the more you require, the more a real man is going to deplete himself to give you, right? And if you're not willing to replenish, if you're not willing to fill the offering basket up, church bills don't get paid, right? You feel what I'm saying? So how we gonna be us if I'm just doing you?
Exactly. Come on now.
I'm just saying, you can't pour from an empty glass.
Exactly.
You cannot pour from an empty glass. Boo, I'm thirsty too. Okay. You got the water, I got the juice. I want some juice. I'm gonna pour some of this water out, put some of that juice in here, dilute me a little bit if you got to, but I'm thirsty too.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? And that's how I feel. Like, I feel like you can tell. I want you to tell me what you want me to do. I want you to tell me what you need from me, because that helps me look at to what I already have and say, okay, this is what I can offer. But if this is what she's asking, can I physically or mentally give that? And if not, can I at least try to, right? So I want to hear those things. But please understand that I want you to understand how important it is for you to hear my needs, what I need from you. All right? Like, babe, I don't want to come home after a 12-hour day and you asking me what we eating for dinner. I thought you knew that by hour 6. I should be text me or something like, babe, I ain't feel like cooking today. Can you pick up something on the way? I need to know that, because if I got to come home and go back out, I'm going to be mad, right? Yeah. But that's a part of understanding the dynamics of the relationship and how we connect, right? That's what I need to know. Like, look, we both need to eat. We both need to drink. So you got needs, I got them too. Let's have that conversation.
Let's have that conversation.
Let's talk about it. If you don't want to talk,
man, let's walk. You go that way, I'm going that way.
Call me Jill Scott.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Elijah.
Yeah. You know, when you make that statement, it really connects for me back to the socialization piece, right? So hypermasculinity is the framework which most men understand themselves, their emotions, the way they relate to the world. There's a similar process for women, right? A process of expectation of what their role should be as, you know, individually, what their role should be in the relationship, what their role should be in the community. So we can't fault women for having certain expectations of their men being providers, stepping up, acting in these roles. It's based on what they've seen. It's based on how they've been educated. It's based on what they've learned throughout time, right? And so sometimes the ways in which we condition them can set so many people up to fail. And, these harmful effects in real relationships. We need to be honest about where we are versus where our expectations are. What are the flaws? What are the gaps? How can we connect? How can we adjust? And how can we be real with ourselves? I come from a perspective of, if someone expects something of you, that means they care about you. Maybe that means that they see the potential in you. That means that they won't accept anything less on your behalf. So sometimes that's the role of an advocate. That's the role of somebody who is your support system that's pushing you to achieve, to unlock that potential and to move forward in the way that you should. So I think that sometimes in the way, it all depends on how it's communicated. Are we communicating with kindness, with love, with empathy? Or are we communicating from some false premise that's not connected to our experience, our reality, and that's just shaming somebody, right? That's just putting them down. That's just isolating them. That's just worsening the whole process about how they feel about themselves and what they've done up to this point. So women and men alike, we got to be conscious of the language that we use. We've got to be intentional about the approach that we take, right? We all want to see better from our partners, okay? Yeah. But what role can we take, right, in being intentional about the language that we take with that? And how much do we know the people that we're with to understand their habits, to understand what works for them, what kind of support, what kind of encouragement, what kind of uplifting works for them? So it's not the same for everybody, right? So generally, I would say that kind of support, that kind of impression or expectation is helpful, because it could show somebody, even on their lowest moments, when they're depressed, when they're anxious, when they're down and out, that there is hope, that there is a next step, that there is an opportunity. And sometimes it just takes that little push, that little nudge to get up and get after it.
Awesome. Look, our time is up. I didn't even know it was this late. Our time is up. You guys have been amazing.
Our pleasure.
Okay, I want you both to give your social media information. Put it out in the feed so we can follow you guys. So we can see what you got going on. Be supportive in any way that we can. Network, get some resources going over here in the ATL, all the way to the NYC and up in Philly. So let's get it popping. Elijah, give your social media information and anything else you want the people to know.
All right. So you can find me on Instagram at ET_therapy. I also am a co-founder of a psychotherapeutic practice. So you can find me at inspiredpractice.net. And I'm also on Psychology Today. You can find me on My Wellbeing, resiliencelab.us. I'm currently accepting clients for evening sessions. Happy to talk about and be a supportive resource for all things mental health in our community. So feel free to reach out and build a connection. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Oh, my brother, it has been phenomenal. All right. Uncle Kev, drop your info.
So I am at Uncle Kev on Instagram. I am Kevin Gold on Facebook. And I'm at Uncle Kevy Kev on Twitter. And so if you want to connect, you can figure out, you could connect with me on those platforms. We could talk about how to dive deeper into some life coaching work. I like to travel, and I'm getting my vaccine so I can travel. So I don't mind showing up. I owe ATL a visit anyway, but I love I love occupying spaces like this. So thank you for having me tonight. This has been fun. Eliza, bro, you the one, bro. You the one. I appreciate y'all so much for this. Thank you for seeing the need.
Yes.
To recognize and how important it is for Black men to have a platform like this to speak about mental wellness. Thank you so much. Thank you to the beautiful women that support it. Because without you guys, we would not do this work to the fullest of our capabilities. Black men don't create spaces for Black men to talk about mental health. Black women do that. So thank you. And we appreciate you because of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. That's going to be it for Live It Out, Inc. That's the L. If you guys are throwing the L up for us just to show your support for Live It Out. Yes. Thank you guys again. We do this
Yeah.
every Thursday. So feel free to tune in, to chime in, let me know. If you guys have anything going on you want to live it out to be a part of. We all about mental health and wellness, suicide awareness and prevention. Everything. Just let us know if we can support you in any kind of way. We will. Go ahead, Uncle Kev. You got your head up.
Yeah. So hey, pick me. I do want to. I'm hosting a conversation via Zoom on April the 2nd. It's called "From Mothers Raising Black Sons," and this conversation is specifically to hear from the women who are doing the work, as our Black men have become susceptible to violence at an alarming rate. In that conversation, we'll tap into mental health solutions for mothers and women who are supporting women and Black boys. So I want to invite anybody on this platform who would like to be a part of that to join. If you follow me on these 3 social media sites, you could obtain the link to register. It's a free event. I just wanted to get a registration so I could tally up my numbers. So I hope to see some of you guys there.
Awesome. We will be there. Thank you, Elijah from the NYC. Regina, some of your folks on here. We got a couple of people from New York. They moved to Atlanta. They rep New York.
Shout out to the city. Hey now.
So you guys have a great night, and I will see you
Gotcha.
on next Thursday.
Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
You too. Bye-bye.